So now, we will give focus the Philippine government, or specifically also known as the Philippine Republic. And before we go to the current republic type of government in the Philippines, let's have first a history of the Philippine Republic. The first Republic of the Philippines was established after the declaration of the Philippine independence in 1988 in Kawit, Cavite. And it was established in spite of the presence of the American forces in different parts of the country. In January 1899, Malolo's Constitution was created, and Malolo's Constitution was the framework of this government. And this is also the reason why the First Republic is also known as the Malolos Congress or the Malolos Republic, headed by Emilio Aguinaldo as president. And while having a negotiation between Filipinos and Americans, there was an incident between Americans and Filipinos happened in February 1899, wherein the Filipinos were blamed as the one who started the war between Americans. And the First Republic did not realize its aims because the Filipino-American War started in February 1899. And in March 23, 1901, Aguinaldo was captured by the Americans. And this is the sign of the end of the First Republic in the Philippines. Before the Second Republic established in the Philippines, in 1935, there was a transitional government known as Commonwealth Government, headed by President Manuel Quezon. And in 1941, started the Japanese occupation in the Philippines. This is the era of World War II. And Second Philippine Republic was established during the Japanese occupation here in the Philippines. And Japanese established a military government in the Philippines. In January 1943, the Premier of Japan announced the establishment of the Republic of the Philippines. And on October 1943, the Second Republic was inaugurated, headed by President Laurel. And there were several issues about President Laurel because of alliances from Japanese. And some of the Filipinos considered President Laurel as a taksil in our country. But according to Laurel or President Laurel, that the purpose of Second Republic is was to lessen the casualty here in the Philippines. That is why Second Republic is also known as the puppet government. And Laurel formally dissolved the Second Republic on August 17, 1945, 2 days after Japan surrendered to the Allies. And this is also the sign of the end of the Second World War. And after the Second World War, the President of America granted the independence of the Philippines in July 4, 1946, after the surrender of the Japanese forces in the Philippines. And Manuel or President Rojas was the first president of the Third Republic of the Philippines. While Ferdinand Marcos was the last president of the Third Republic of the Philippines. There were five presidents who used the Third Republic. We have Manuel Rojas or President Rojas, President Quirino or Elpidio Quirino. We have President Ramon Magsaysay. After President Magsaysay, followed by President Garcia. Next is President Diosdado Macapagal and President Ferdinand Marcos. But in September 23, 1972, by the Proclamation 1081, Marcos declared martial law. And this is also the end of the Third Republic of the Philippines and the beginning of the dictatorship of President Marcos. President Marcos assumed his office in 1965 and he used the Third Republic of the Philippines up to 1972. One, when he declared a martial law in 1972, in January 17, 1981, martial law was lifted. And in June 1981, President Marcos allowed the holding of the presidential election. And this is the beginning of the Fourth Republic of the Philippines. And in February 7, 1986, presidential election was held, and at the end of the counting, the Commission of Election or COMELEC announced Ferdinand Marcos as the winning president, while the National Movement for Free Election announced the Corazon Aquino as the president. And President Marcos refused to recognize the legality of the presidency of Aquino. And they later also accused Marcos manipulating the snap election. And in February 22, millions of people or Filipino people revolt against the dictatorship of, Marcos. And February 22 started the Bloodless Revolution or the EDSA Revolution 1 to overthrow the dictatorship of Marcos. And in February 25, 1986, Corazon Aquino took her oath as a president of the Philippines while President Marcos left the country. After the EDSA Revolution, the Filipinos proved to the world that the peaceful revolution was still possible to overthrow the dictatorship. And this is also the end of Marcos' regime and started the beginning of the new Republican state of the Philippines, or also known as the Fifth Republic of the Philippines. The Fifth Republic or the 1987 Philippine Constitution is the product or reaction to the tyrannical years of Marcos' dictatorial rule. And according to the Article 2 of the 1987 Constitution, that the Philippines Constitution provides the Philippine that the Philippines is a democratic and republican state where sovereignty resides to the people and all government authority emanates from them. And President Corazon Aquino was the first female president of the Philippines. And up to now, we still use the Philippine or the 1987 Philippines Constitution or the Fifth Republic of the Philippines.